Halloween night, 2016. A relentless rain fell in steady sheets, blanketing the empty roads of a small Pennsylvania town in a thick, rolling fog. A taxi driver, a man named Alan Reed, was pushing through the final hours of his late shift. He was just trying to earn a few more dollars before heading home to his family. Alan wasn't a man who indulged in flights of fancy. He didn't believe in ghosts. He didn't believe in anything supernatural. But that night, as the clock ticked past midnight, something was about to enter his car that wasn't quite human. Something that would challenge everything he thought he knew about the world. He was a practical man, a man of routine and logic. But logic was about to take a back seat to terror. It was around 2:45 in the morning when his headlights cut through the gloom and landed on a solitary figure. There, standing alone under the nervous flicker of a dying streetlight, was a young woman. She was dressed in a long, flowing white gown, the kind you might see in an old photograph. The fabric was soaked completely through, plastered to her skin by the merciless downpour. Her dark hair was a tangled mess clinging to her pale face, but it was her eyes that truly unsettled him. They seemed hollow, vacant, like dark pools of water reflecting nothing. Despite a prickle of unease, Alan's better nature took over. He slowed the taxi to a crawl, the tires hissing on the wet pavement, and rolled the passenger window down just a crack. A gust of cold, damp air swirled into the cab as he leaned over. "Need a ride, miss?" he asked, his voice full of genuine concern. The woman didn't seem to react at first, as if his words had to travel a great distance to reach her. Then, she turned her head slowly, her movements strangely deliberate. Her voice, when it came, was barely a whisper, a soft, trembling sound that was almost lost in the rhythm of the rain. "Home, please." She opened the back door and slid inside, dripping water onto the leather seats. She gave him an address, a rural route just a few miles outside of town. Alan's brow furrowed in confusion. He knew that road. It didn't lead to any homes. Not anymore. It led to the charred remains of the old Turner farmhouse, a place that had burned to the ground in a terrible fire more than 20 years ago. The whole family had been lost. Still, he didn't question her. It was Halloween, after all. People did strange things. Maybe it was some kind of elaborate prank or a dare. He put the car in drive and pulled away from the curb, leaving the flickering streetlight to its lonely vigil in the fog. The journey began in an unnerving silence, broken only by the rhythmic thud of the windshield wipers and the patter of rain on the roof. The woman sat perfectly still in the back seat, a silent, drenched statue. Alan found his eyes repeatedly drawn to the rearview mirror. He couldn't help but glance back, and each time he did, something seemed off. She looked a little different with every look. Her face, already pale, seemed to be growing even whiter, almost translucent. Her dark, hollow eyes appeared to sink deeper into her skull, becoming darker and more cavernous. At one point, he thought he heard her whisper something, a faint, breathy sound. But when he turned his head to ask what she'd said, she was just staring blankly out the window at the dark, rushing landscape. The silence was becoming suffocating. Trying to break the palpable tension, Alan attempted to make small talk. He forced a casual tone, his voice sounding unnaturally loud in the quiet car. "So, big Halloween night, huh?" He glanced in the mirror, hoping for a normal response, a smile, anything. The woman didn't turn her head. She just continued her vacant stare out the window. Then, her soft, ethereal voice filled the cab once more, laced with an ancient sadness. "I used to love Halloween." Her voice cracked on the last word, a fragile, heartbreaking sound. Then, she said something else. Something that made Alan's knuckles turn white as he gripped the steering wheel, his hands suddenly trembling. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion, yet it carried the weight of a world of pain. "He left me on this road. I never made it home." Alan's heart hammered against his ribs. It felt like it had stopped beating altogether for a second. He snapped his gaze up to the rearview mirror, his blood running cold. She was gone. The back seat was utterly empty. There was no sign she had ever been there, except for a dark, damp patch on the leather. The air inside the taxi instantly turned frigid, an unnatural, biting cold that had nothing to do with the autumn night outside. He could see his own breath fogging up in front of him, each exhale a cloud of white mist. He frantically looked around the empty car, his mind screaming. It wasn't possible. It just wasn't possible. Then, the taxi meter on his dashboard started to flicker wildly, the numbers flashing in a nonsensical, chaotic dance. At the same instant, the radio, which had been silent, burst to life with a deafening roar of static. And through that crackling, hissing wall of sound, a faint, distorted whisper slithered into his ears. "Don't stop. Keep driving." Panic seized him. Alan slammed his foot on the brakes with all his might. The taxi screeched, tires hydroplaning for a terrifying moment before lurching to a violent stop. His body was thrown forward against the seatbelt. As he caught his breath, his heart pounding in his ears, he looked outside. He wasn't on the main road anymore. He was parked directly in front of the ruins of the old Turner farmhouse. The skeletal, burned-out frame of the house stood like a tombstone against the dark, stormy sky. And then he heard a click. The back door of the taxi, the one she had used, slowly creaked open all on its own, swinging out into the rainy night. It was an invitation. A force he couldn't explain compelled him to move. Shivering more from fear than the cold, Alan stepped out of the car. The wind howled around the ruins, carrying the ghosts of old screams. His flashlight beam cut a nervous path through the darkness. And there, in the soft mud, he saw them. Footprints. Fresh footprints, impossibly made by bare feet, leading away from his taxi and toward the crumbling foundation of the burned-out house. He had to know. Against his better judgment, he followed them, his own shoes squelching in the mud. The air here was thick with the smell of old ash, damp earth, and something else. Something like decay. Its light swept across the overgrown weeds and rubble, and then it landed on it. A small, broken gravestone, half buried in the dirt, almost completely reclaimed by nature. He knelt, wiping away the mud and grime. The name carved into the stone made his blood run cold. It read, "Emily Turner died October 31st, 1996. And at that exact moment, he remembered the passenger receipt his meter had automatically printed when he stopped. The name on it, printed in crisp black ink, was Emily Turner. Pure, undiluted terror flooded his veins. Alan scrambled backward, falling in the mud, then got to his feet and ran. He didn't look back. He just ran, stumbling through the darkness, back to the perceived safety of his car. He threw himself into the driver's seat, gasping for air, his hands shaking so violently he could barely grip the keys. But as he sat there, his eyes adjusted to the dim interior light, and he saw it. There, on the back seat where she had been sitting, lay a single perfect white rose. Its petals were still glistening with water. And on the foggy condensation of the rear window, as if traced by an invisible finger, were 3 words. "Thanks for the ride." The next morning, the local police found Alan Reed's taxi parked by the ruins of the old Turner farmhouse. The engine was still running, the windshield wipers still sweeping back and forth in a futile effort to clear the morning dew. But Alan Reed was gone. He was never seen or heard from again. To this day, some of the locals in that small Pennsylvania town will tell you a story. They say that every Halloween night, when the fog rolls in thick and heavy, a lone taxi sometimes appears on that dark, empty road. Its headlights glow like ghostly eyes cutting through the mist. And if you're unlucky enough to be out walking and you see it, don't wave it down. Don't accept the ride, because the driver is just trying to finish his shift. And once you get in, you'll never make it home. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe for more chills. Stay safe out there.